Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Some breaking news, late night news, as four-star linebacker Braden Platt from the state of Washington commits to the Oregon Ducks. And there is so much to like about what Braden Platt brings to the table. 6'2", 240 pounds. You talk about just the athletic traits that he has, right? The size and the frame at 6'2", 240. You love that. Then you take a look at what he does on the track and field. 100-meter dash time of 11 seconds. He's a national champ in the javelin. You're talking about one of the freakier athletes in this 2024 class. And then you take a look at what he does on Friday nights on the high school football field. Two-way player, freak linebacker that goes sideline to sideline. Also a phenomenal running back. Sounds like he's going to be a linebacker at the next level. This is a massive get for Oregon. And any chance I get, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we're going to be talking about what the Oregon Ducks are doing. Dan Lanning, I think if people were concerned about the recruiting dropping off after Mario Cristobal left, I feel like those concerns are getting mitigated relatively quickly. You take a look at the 2023 class that Dan Lanning was able to bring in, then you take a look at the 2024 class and what he is building. We're going to talk about a few more targets in this 2024 class. The talent is coming to Eugene. The player development, I'm sure, is going to follow after you look at Dan Lanning's track record at the University of Georgia. This is a team that I feel like is just getting put under the radar in terms of what they are building. Dan Lanning is absolutely crushing it. Now, before we talk about Braden Platt, dive into the film, just want to say thank you to the Oregon fans. You guys know this is one of my favorite programs to talk about, whether we're talking recruiting, whether we're taking deep dives into this team. The support from you guys truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, can't thank you guys enough for all the support, especially Oregon fans. We've been talking a lot of Oregon football all summer. Let's get into Braden Platt. I want to turn on the film and just talk a little bit about what we see from Braden Platt on Friday nights. And the first, as we pull this up, is you're gonna just see a freak athlete with like everything you really want. Now you're gonna see him getting reps at right. I guess before we play, fire up the tape, one thing I want to say is Dan Lanning, I think, is making a very strong push to get a little bit more athletic at that linebacker spot. This is something we've talked about. Noah Sewell, Justin Flo last year. Guys, especially Noah Sewell, as good as he was, goes in the NFL draft. I think the athleticism, the ability to go sideline to sideline and have that speed to go tackle running backs in the flat, to carry tight ends up the seam, I think was lacking a little bit. So I think what you're seeing Dan Lanning doing, and like moving a guy like Jamal Hill to that linebacker spot and going out and getting Braden Platt, one of the fastest and freakiest athletes at that linebacker spot. I think you're seeing Dan Lanning to recruit and get a little bit more athletic at that linebacker spot. And you're going to see right off the film, like elite movement skills, contact balance as a running back. And then you see the absolute burners. Like, again, this is a guy who is 240 pounds and runs an 11-second 100-meter dash time. That's faster than a lot of wide receivers at this time. Another thing that you're going to see is just like the unbelievable instincts that he has. He's not only a freak athlete, he's extremely physical and has those instincts that you want at a middle linebacker spot. Again, not to rag on a guy like Justin Flo, but Justin Flo, all the athletic traits in the world, really just lack those instincts. Braden Platt, talk about not lacking instincts, taking on this block, absolutely burying that pulling tight end, and then going and making the play. There's so much to like about what Braden Platt brings to the table. And again, you're going to see the top end speed on the field as well. This is a guy that, he immediately steps on the field, is one of the fastest players at 240 pounds. This is a rare blend of size, speed, and athleticism that I think is going to translate to the next level. And you take a look, we'll just pause it real quick and take a look at what Dan Lanning has done with linebackers that he's had time to kind of mold and develop. Guys like Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Channing Tindall, these are all guys who are on the NFL rosters from the University of Georgia. I think the track record for Dan Lanning is really, really high. And you take a look at this class in 2024, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you have to be thrilled about what Dan Lanning is building. Aaron Flowers, one of my favorite hybrid safeties that can do so many different things. You have two of the top cornerbacks in the class in Dakota Fields and Ife Obadegwu, who are just long, really athletic. You have one of the better defensive linemen, Xavier Sims. You go down to this linebacker room, Kingston Lopa, Kamar Mathudi, Dylan Williams, and now you add a guy like Braden Platt. It is really hard to see this front seven not being elite under Dan Lanning. And I think you talk about not only does Dan Lanning have elite player development, he's been an elite recruiter at the University of Georgia, and you're seeing that translate to the University of Oregon. And when you start coupling elite recruiting with elite player development, which Dan Lanning, I think, possesses both, that is the recipe to having kind of an elite football team. And as much as Mario Cristobal was a great recruiter, I think sometimes the in-game coaching in the player development left a little bit to be desired. Me personally, Mario Cristobal was awesome at Oregon. I think they knocked it out of the park hiring Dan Lanning, a young coach, a lot of energy, a lot of buzz around this program. And now Oregon's sitting, and this was before they added Braden Platt into the class. You're sitting at a top 15 class in the country, and I don't even think they're done. They have 22 commits in the boat. The next two guys I'll be keeping an eye on, two guys from modern day, 5-star defensive lineman LB Brayden, the number 6 player in the country, the number 2 defensive lineman. Again, Dan Lanning carries a heavy stick when it comes to getting guys on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that front seven. With all the talent that he helped recruit and develop at the University of Georgia, I think guys are looking at Dan Lanning and saying, he's a guy that I can go play for, get developed, compete for national championships, and go to the NFL. I mean, those are the boxes that you want to check, right? An elite football program that's winning a lot of games on Saturdays, and then a program that you're going to get developed and put into the NFL. I think Dan Lanning selling both those things, those are probably the two top things that are priorities for these recruits. LB Brayden carrying his recruitment out into the fall. Wouldn't be surprised if Oregon ends up landing LB Brayden. And then you go over to 5-star offensive tackle Brandon Baker, both from modern day. This would be a massive, massive addition to the class. You take a look at the young tackles already in Oregon, and then if you land a guy like Brandon Baker, the number 1 offensive tackle in the 2024 class, what you're seeing, in my opinion, is just what Dan Lanning is doing, coupling elite recruiting, elite player development. This stuff is going to translate to Saturdays. And if you're an Oregon fan, I think you hit a home run with Dan Lanning. You're seeing it pay dividends on the recruiting trail, and it's soon going to pay dividends on Saturdays as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again late night. Appreciate you guys checking this out. But anytime I get a chance to talk some Oregon football, always going to do so. Appreciate you guys. Thank you. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.